All right, let's get started, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us on the third day of Donor Experience Week. I hope you've learned a lot so far. My name is Mel Bilko, if you haven't already met me. I'm Keela's head of community, and I'll be the moderator of today's session. We also have Sam in the background. She's the director of marketing at Keela. She'll be helping out with the technical questions and popping things into the chat box when necessary. I wanted to start by acknowledging that here in Vancouver, we are on the traditional and ancestral and unceded territories of the Coast Salish people, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and give thanks for their generosity and hospitality on these lands and waters that we're on. I want to follow up with that with a quick announcement that about Keela U. So this is a free course that we're offering, which is dedicated to small to medium-sized nonprofits looking to grow their skills, be more analytical in these times, through the digital age. And if you'd like to receive our first chapter, which goes live on October 1st, you can sign up using a link which Sam has just popped it into the chat there. So today we've had the pleasure of hosting two talented speakers already, Julia Campbell and Alice Corner. And we wouldn't be able to put these free sessions on without the help of all of these amazing speakers who have also agreed to volunteer their time, as well as to our sponsors, Imagine Canada, Pano, and the Good Partnership. So thank you all. And we also want to especially thank our next speaker, George Weiner, for being here with us today. We're super excited to dive into this topic with George, and his session is titled Turning Traffic into Relationships. George is the chief whaler of Whole Whale, a B-Corp digital marketing and analytics agency for social impact, which was founded in 2010. Whole Whale has grown to help hundreds of social impact clients while developing educational products that include online courses, podcasts, and tons of other really great fundraising content. All right, so before we begin, I just want to mention that we'll be kind of taking a few Q&A sessions throughout the session to break it up. So please feel free to pop any of your questions into the Q&A or into the chat box. And like I said, we'll get to them kind of throughout. All right, so with that, I think I'll pass it off to you now, George. I'm super excited to dive into this with you right now.
We have so much to cover. I'm a little daunted, though, I have to say, following Julie Campbell. She is amazing. Fortunately, these sessions are being recorded, and I strongly recommend, even without having joined it, everything she puts out there is just solid gold, and we're friends. And so I will do my very best to be the second best or third best you've heard today, and talking about turning traffic into relationships. So let's just dive into it, shall we? This is what we're up to here. And by relationships, I put in parentheses, for many of us, this may mean donors. And so I just want to speak directly to that thought. I'm George, as mentioned before. Yes, I founded Whole Whale. I'm also the co-founder of Power Poetry. It is a safe, creative, free place for young people to share their poetry. And I bring it up because they are a case study sometimes that we talk about in this. I'm a podcaster. We have a podcast, Social Impact Tech, and stories there, a dad, and an amateur jerky maker. Yeah, COVID's been weird. Whole Whale, we're a B Corp digital agency. We leverage data and tech to increase impact. It's our jam. Over 100 partners we've worked with across many different causes, all of which have helped us craft our strategies, learn in the field, learn by doing, and working with the best and the brightest. What we're covering today: why traffic matters, the 5 sources of traffic, diving in, making sure you understand those, the easiest ways to increase traffic, and then finally, how do we improve that donor email acquisition, that relationship moment? We're just going to break it down in these parts as we go through. I encourage you, as Mel said, I encourage you to ask questions as we go, because I'm going to be kind of pausing after these different sections of saying, hey, what about this? I heard that that works, or this is a question we're dealing with. This presentation will be more valuable to you, and also a reward to those of you who showed up in person versus watching it later. No offense to you watching later, but you're asking questions, and I want to make sure we deliver value to you and you get something out of this. So please, please, please don't feel bad about interrupting with questions, because today's goal, I want actionable strategies for online fundraising and so building the relationships and your lists and converting those subscribers into donors. I want this to leave you with something actionable, something that you can do tomorrow. So I hope you're ready here. Starting off, why does traffic matter? Why traffic matters? We see it as a sort of form of commitment over time. And this is a journey, not a destination. If any of you have watched Up in the first 10 minutes and cried your eyes out, because it's just, it is just incredible. You start off with a relationship, this first date, and this is the traffic. Maybe hey, how are you doing? Let me check out your about page or some resource. And then maybe we go on a couple dates, right? This is the moment where we're catching an email, where we're catching the permission to talk with somebody. And then finally, the donation, the monthly gift, is somebody really committing to your organization. And so it's important to have this narrative in your mind that's not an immediate, hey, someone showed up on my site, give now. This is a relationship that must be developed with the permission to communicate, with value delivered over email. And I'm going to come back to this point again and again, because we have different models to think about here. And so when we increase support or attention and commitment over time, this is what it looks like. Steal this funnel, write it down for yourself, map out how your organization is moving from and moving people from aware to interested to engaged to committed. At the aware level, people know you exist. They've come to your site to discover you through search, or someone or a friend sent them information. The interested, this is the signal that they care, right? That they've joined your email list, opted in to hear from you. This is the asset you're building, the permission to talk with somebody who can become more engaged over time, click-throughs, time on site, maybe signing petitions or engaging with other actions, and then donate, right? They end up donating or becoming a deeper engaged person. The attention matters. Attention really matters. I love this book, How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp. I think it's a overlooked gem in the marketing world, because it speaks to the data behind why attention actually changes the way we purchase. And it boils down to some very simple things. That familiarity actually correlates to trust. The more I see you, the more I hear about you. Oh, I've been seeing you everywhere. The more likely I am to pick that Coke or Pepsi off the shelf. The more likely I am to say, hey, I trust this because I've seen it. It's basically a human heuristic where it's what we do. And so when we're building that trust, when someone comes as traffic to our site and comes by, that's what we're doing. We're building familiarity with a target audience that we're then trying to keep top of mind. We're trying to keep our message, our cause, our issues top of mind for our audience. And that increases the chance, our trigger, right? That email that asks, that donation moment or campaign ask moment, to succeed when we are top of mind. Mental decay is real. This means that, frankly, we forget things. We forget things quickly. And once we've forgotten them, that asset, that familiarity kind of erodes. It makes it harder. And then the endless competition out there for people's attention is what we're fighting against, the signal to noise. And so making sure that we have a plan, we've automated it, and we've added value when possible along the way matters quite a bit. Another framework, I think you're noticing a trend. We do like our frameworks here at Whole Whale because they help us think about where these things fit in the grand scheme of things. So I'm trying to maximize this. That looks better to me. Aware to care. The aware to care cycle starts with this attention into action. How are we running these campaigns, projects, signups, acquiring that email, moving into, once we have that email, nurturing up the ladder. Nurturing up the ladder through our welcome series. This is an automatic drip campaign. It just means that you set it and people are then messaged. P.S. CRMs are awesome for this. You can't do any of this without a CRM. This conference brought to you by Keela. Reminder. Reminders, alerts, tips, value via email. I'm going to say that again. Value via email here is important because we're deepening the engagement. We're reminding them. We're building the attention. We're moving them from someone who's aware to someone who is caring. And then we get our converted giving moments, these moments of birthdays, holidays, special events, and other moments that you are obviously bringing up probably in the end of year to give. But it doesn't just happen overnight. And a whole way around the circle it goes again, that the people that are giving are ending up coming back as traffic. So the traffic, the attention we're building is working on the entire system. It is working on somebody as they traverse through the entire cycle and back around through. So that is all working together. It isn't actually just a funnel where people fall out the bottom. It is supporting along the way. Alrighty, these relationships can actually be measured in dollars. What does that mean? Well, on this chart, I'm showing you this commitment curve, this cost per acquisition commitment curve on the y-axis. It's the level of commitment, how involved, how emotionally tied to the organization someone probably has to be in order to, let's say, attend an event, right? Showing up on a Saturday to volunteer at a thing or go to a chicken dinner or whatnot. And on the x-axis, it's roughly the amount of time that it'll take to get someone to that level of commitment. Now, we can also, instead of just nurturing up the ladder, we can pay to get someone to jump in at various levels. And I think this is interesting because it shows the value involved here. M&R benchmarks. M&R benchmarks, really great generalized data from 2019 shows us that if we want to click to our site, paying for traffic, which we'll talk about as one of the sources, look, you can pay like 50 cents to get a cost per click, someone to click, come to your site and go there. You can pay for lead acquisition. The benchmark right now about $250. Okay, so we can pay $250 to get an email. That's a relationship. These things have monetary value, quite literally, if we're paying for them. And then if in the donor range, which by the way, I don't recommend, we have a huge variance depending on how you are targeting and bringing in that donor in the time of year. So huge variance up to $240 being paid, which can be dangerous because you can be losing money by paying for donors. I don't recommend that high scale unless you know what you're doing, it's the right time of year, and you're running a smart campaign. Okay, so I'm trying to frame us here. I'm trying to get us onto the beginning point before I run into the 5 main sources of traffic. I just want to pause and just see if there are any open questions, any challenges, or saying, well, wait a minute, my organization doesn't care about awareness at all. We wouldn't be benefited if we doubled our email list. Or any confusion about how emails relate to donations, because that's a key underpinning of this. I'm going to hold for a second, Mel, just make sure we're on. Okay.
Nothing of significance here that is coming up, so I think you can continue.
Great. Hopefully the volume's okay. I see someone asking about it, but it seems like you hear me.
I hear you.
My mic is working. All righty.
Yeah, we'll follow up with you, Ainsley.
Okay, brilliant. If you're purchasing a mailing list, can spam complain? Hey, Katie, thanks for asking that question, being brave enough to put that out there. Here is my 2 cents on purchasing a list. Remember that slide I put up about relationships? How do you feel when someone spam calls you, like calls you up and says, hey, would you like to do this thing, buy this widget, do this thing? No, you've interrupted me. Do you like it when you get an email bit of spam? I think the concern here is when you buy a list, you haven't bought relationships. And when you then send that list out, yes, you can get your domain flagged for spam, which will hurt future delivery. Yes, even though you may get one donor out of it, there are that many more people who are like, those are the people that got my email address and just started sending me unsolicited messages. I want to come back to something Seth goes and talks about as the permission marketing. Permission to communicate with somebody is a handshake. It's an agreement, and it's the way honest relationships start. So I really don't support buying lists, spamming them with your message, because it's a short-term tactic. It works once, but it hurts your brand more, hurts your domain more, and I think it'll. I don't think it is a strategy I can actually get behind there. All righty, rolling through 5 main sources of traffic. How do we get them in the door? Okay, this is a big slide, lots on it. However, it'll hopefully map it out in a simple way, starting with organic traffic. Number 1, search engines, Google, Bing, Ask Jeeves, obviously, insert joke here. It is discovery, it's questioning. People are typing in their questions into Google trillions of times saying, hey, how do I do this? What's the information on that? What are the facts about this issue? How do I... And that's where your organization potentially shows up. Yes, people can also be Googling your own domain, your own brand and information related to that. And that's kind of moving into direct traffic. Inside of direct traffic, this is where users are directly going into your website from the actual address bar in the browser, going from bookmarked and things and uncategorized or bucketed untagged links are getting thrown into there. Direct traffic in general means more loyal customers, right? Someone who knows to find you by your brand name. We know them, we find them, we type them in and go there when we want to. I do recommend, and I'll show you in a subsequent slide, how to allocate your organic brand traffic as direct traffic, because I think that's where it belongs more, unless you want to separate it out a bit more. Referral traffic is traffic coming from links from other sites. So let's say wholewhale.com added a link to your organization. Someone clicked it, went to your site. Well, that would count as a visit. and that would be traffic from whole whale to your site. So these referral links are usually related also to SEO link building and reputation building. You can get traffic from any number of places: listing sites, news outlets that are writing about you, rating sites, partners that you build up. And those are all sort of tagged under the, like, wait a minute, this came from this domain. This is referral traffic to your website, which can be analyzed. Paid traffic, all things paid: search engine marketing, pay-per-click, social, whatever you can pay for. We talked about it before. Buying traffic to your website can be done from any major platform, as long as you have a credit card and the willingness to give dollars for traffic. That can happen, and that's tracked under paid. Social traffic, finally, is, as you imagine it, traffic from designated social channels that you are posting on, and people finding your content, either things you posted or maybe people shared from your site on Facebook or Twitter or whatever social channel you happen to be using. And that is the traffic that would come from that and categorized. You may be thinking, wait a minute, there are more than 5, George. I'm talking about the 5 main ones: channels and sources that are also, keep in mind, customizable. We can change these. These are just the defaults in Google Analytics. And also, when we talk about email, UTM campaigns, brand, display, paid, spam can show up. Look, I consider email actually an own channel. That is not necessarily how most web traffic comes in, but yes, you could quietly include that as a 6, and then there's other ways of separating out paid and other things as well inside of Google Analytics. Google Analytics, the free analytics platform, is the ability to also say, as I mentioned before, add in a keyword. And down here at the bottom, you can kind of see inside of my admin, if I'm an admin user, I can go to my channel groupings, which is where I define this stuff. I can actually add, as we have, keywords exactly matching whole whale ending up on our website. Well, that's more of a direct traffic. A lot of people actually just type everything into a Google search and end up there. So I do recommend adding that into your direct as an option. UTM is a tagging. So if you search for it, it's a URL tag management system, UTMs, that are able to say, all right, I'm going to overwrite where this campaign came from. Thanks for asking that question. Google Analytics. Okay, right? Google.com/analytics. Hopefully you have it. Hopefully you know about it. It is free for your website. It's JavaScript, lives on every single page of your site. Super easy to install, and lets you see the what, where, how, when, and activity of your website visitors, right? That's how we can tell those sources of traffic. Tag Manager, this is something we recommend installed with. We can also set up goals and events, things that we want to be tracking with goals, because out of the box, Google Analytics doesn't know when a goal, quote unquote, occurs that is related to your newsletter sign up. So what we want to do is set up, anytime we get an email to our site, we want to set that up as a goal so we can track that little win, that success moment later. And that'll help us determine what's working. We can also set these up for any number of things, including donation completions and sales funnels and long visits on our site. And there's also a subcategory of events that we can track a wider range of things like outbound referrals or how deep people are scrolling. There's a lot of customization, and this is a lot of the work Whole Whale ends up doing with many of our clients upfront, making sure you're measuring the right thing in the right way so that you can tell how your marketing is doing over time, how your website is performing and turning traffic into relationships. So every visitor is a potential donor. This is a look at Power Poetry's data. I said we'd be bringing them up again. This is actual data showing you the breakdown. Because I shared those 5 major traffic sources, it doesn't mean they're all equal. It doesn't mean I want you to run out and think, oh, each one should be an equal slice of the pie. And in fact, this is commonly what we see. Organic traffic is massive. Usually the largest, most likely to grow area of traffic to your website is probably coming from Google, this organic traffic. And then, sort of talk to your doctor results may vary with regard to what else sort of shows up in your pie chart. But it's important to note that they're not all equal. You should not be like stressing out if one is like lower or higher at all. You should focus on what works and do more of what works. But this is where we're seeing organic search, direct, paid, referral, social. As I mentioned before, email is a channel that you control. And let me take a look. There's a question here that popped up. Are The reports on the weight that each of these traffic sources have in the traffic equation. This would be helpful in determining how much time, money to spend on sources. 10% traffic source from social, 40% SERP. So I feel like you being able to see this question is answering this. And so what you can actually look at in your own site is the delta year over year, right? You can look month versus last month and see how you're growing and which areas are actually your biggest sources of growth. And rather than stressing out being like, we're not getting enough from social. Well, that's because social is cheating. Social is, in general, like if we're talking about Facebook, reducing the amount of traffic to your site. So the larger percentage of the pie is usually going to be organic. And we're going to identify when I get to those easy steps, like where you should be focused on. So this will hopefully be interesting for you all to find out where your largest slice of the pie live. Can you provide more details about organic site? Oh, great. So what is direct? So some more questions just to come back to the fundamentals, organic search. Remember, this is somebody typing in a question such as, how do I write a poem? Might land you on Power Poetry. That was a search entered into Google, and that shows up as traffic on the site organically. That's how that word is used. So organic search is that category. Direct, again, is somebody typing it in directly into the URL, directly into the address bar, going directly to the site, or it's an untagged link where it can't necessarily tell where it came from, but somebody clicked on something, immediately ended up on your site. From direct traffic, signal of health, of how many people are knowing and going to your site on a regular basis. Paid search, pay to play. And yeah, I can give more examples if you need, but think about the last search you did to end up on a website. Think about how you even found this very conference. Nonprofit conferences was searched for Keela, CRMs for nonprofits. I bet you they want to show up in that organic search with results. They click, go onto the site, and that would count as organic traffic. We'll give more examples as we go along. Any other questions? All righty. I think you're going to like this because now let's talk about increasing traffic. Alrighty, I want to focus on low-hanging fruit because you are all busy. You have many things to do. And so in the low-hanging fruit in the world, I have one paid and one earned. So in the paid category, we actually have this little hidden area called the Google Ad Grant. The Google Ad Grant offers $10K a month in-kind advertising through the google.com/nonprofits program. We'll talk more about that in a second. And then content marketing SEO. This is the engine. This is the work that you do that drives organic traffic. Just because you have pages of content on your site doesn't mean that Google is going to properly index and serve them up for the humans looking for the answers to their questions. This stuff works. Here is just an example of how National Aphasia Association quadrupled traffic over a couple years using the combination of the ad grants and SEO and work that we were able to do with them. And it's exciting because they're bringing national attention to aphasia and how it can be worked with and treated. The Google Ad Grants. So google.com/nonprofits, that's where you apply. We have an entire course baked around how to apply for and manage this 10K per month in in-kind search ads. Pretty useful. What does this actually look like? So practically speaking, if you type in how to write rap poetry at the top, you're going to notice these ads and a quiet little thing there that says ad. Well, guess what? Those are paid for, but that's the Google Ad Grant. That lets you show up at the top of searches in the paid area. And then we have SEO content, search engine optimization content, stuff that has been written to answer this question and then is served up by Google when people ask certain questions. In this case, how to write rap poetry will land you on 7 tips to write rap poetry. And guess what? You click that and you end up on Power Poetry's website on the 7 tips for writing rap. And you can kind of see it then moves through and answers that question. Hopefully then inspiring that young poet to write a poem, join the community, hand their email address over so that we can build that relationship over time with them. Yes, there is some red tape. There's some policy elements with regard to the Google Ad Grants, maintaining a minimum of 5% click-through rate account-wide. there's a lot of suspensions that will happen if you don't follow these rules, like falling below that CTR. There's minimum keyword quality score of 2, minimum of 2 ad groups per campaign, and 2 ads, and 2 site links. You're noticing a trend, 2, 2, 2, and a number of others. So I don't want to paint this as like free money, totally easy to use. It takes a little doing. That's why we created an entire course around it, because it's free as long as you're doing it. Okay, I thought social has low weight on earned media because it has low weight on Google's algorithm. Didn't a GG director explain this to SEOs? I thought social has low weight on earned media. I don't quite understand the question here, but frankly, if you're paying, I'm talking about advertising, if you're paying, it is a different world than SEO altogether. Your social work, social posts, organic, natively on the platform are getting less traffic year over year because they're forcing it into a pay-to-play platform. If you're talking about SEO markers for links inbound to grow your organic traffic, I'll get to that in a second, but maybe you can reframe your question a little bit. Search engine optimization SEO. Okay, so we want to write content. We want to write content that answers a question to your target, that your target audience has. So most people probably are not coming through your homepage. Not coming through your homepage. I'm going to say that again. It may surprise you. If they're actually coming through a landing page on your site that answers a question that Google is driving traffic to. So when you see that organic traffic, very little of it is going to your homepage. And in fact, people are landing on sub pages of your site that are written to answer those questions and deliver that value. They're looking for something. They're looking for something that your website can provide. So do some research and figure out what those questions are. And then you need to structure and host your content so that Google can find it quickly. And that's, it's an involved process. We build, then hopefully build relevant and internal, external links to the content because it has to be linked to for Google to see it, value it, and rank it. And then we want to get content, ideally, on the first page of results. We have a course on this. It's content marketing for nonprofits. And so the process here of building content in this way will drive traffic. And we like it because organic, as we mentioned, tends to be the largest slice and biggest opportunity, the biggest opportunity to grow existing traffic. All right, Daphne, I always avoid tags with ads because I was afraid of virus. Do you have an opinion or stats of this impact? Avoid tags with ads. I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure what that ultimately means. What I was showing you here is this is essentially what Google puts out with regard the search, not tags, the search, to avoid search with ads because I was afraid of virus. Really quickly, when you see this ad, Google has a very, very stringent rule about ads. And frankly, like the fact that I want you to pause for a second. Anytime you're saying, well, I never click on this, so no other humans do. Google is a multi-billion-dollar company because of these little ads. It works, it drives traffic. And the sort of N of one, meaning your opinion on a matter of pop-ups is like, that's one. It fundamentally works because it drives a ton of attention. The other thing inside of these ads is they actually verify every single ad account and every single verified domain. And if there is malware and things, it's immediately removed. So actually those links are pretty safe in terms of like clicking on that. So feel free to share anything that would counter that information, but also keep in mind, Google's $1 billion industry of search ads because they simply work when you drive traffic there. I personally never click on an ad. Like, I think it's silly. I always look at search, never click on an ad. But, we have we have a ton of data that suggests that humans do click on those ads. I want you to play a game. The right answers when people ask questions. I want you to play with the autocomplete. The autocomplete is like the most powerful AI tool that has ever been handed to us. And it's just fascinating to me because what you can find out if you do, especially if you do it on an incognito window where it's not already knowing how you normally search, is it's showing you the highest frequency completion rate of people that ask and start to type in a certain question. So if you start to type in, is immigration good or bad or in the Constitution, or is global warming space, you're going to end up with how people are asking that question. And if you care about certain causes like AIDS or the environment or what you may be working on, you may be surprised what people are asking. And it may give you ideas for how to write a piece of content that maybe steers somebody toward truth, which is something in high demand here in the United States of America, I'd say. Okay, how do we do some research? Well, Google Trends is awesome. So is Moz. They have keyword research tools that help you grow and analyze attention. There are a lot of SEO tools out there. We happen to like Moz. They're pretty reliable. And what I like about them is they have tremendous amounts of free resources for you to research and go up the learning curve on here. Okay, so as a reminder, we're trying to become an authority on a topic when we talk about SEO content. That lends people on our pages, and then hopefully on those pages, and I'm showing you a bit more here, we want them to convert. We want them to add a poem or log in, but we want those conversion moments, not just sort of, hey, here's information and run away. We want to be hooking people. This stuff works. So more searches, more traffic and audience. And so this is how we grew Power Poetry to over 420,000 teen poets in 6 years. And also here's just stats on the Google Ad Grant. We're super proud to have spent a lot of Google's money to drive more teens to write and engage with literacy building activities around poetry. All right, how are we turning attention into action? I want to make sure that you think about that, because I was mentioning, like, all right, somebody showed up in your site. We can't let our site visitors become ghosts in the night, passing through and never coming back. We really have to think about getting them to that next important step, which is the email sign up. What is the moment, campaign, interaction, value that you're offering up to start that relationship? Because I got to tell you, even if somebody has the most amazing 5 minutes and 57 seconds of browsing your website, and you're like, oh, they'll come back because I helped them. No, they won't. They simply won't. They're ships passing in the night, and they're not going to help your organization unless you can figure out a reason, an excuse, a way to connect them with your organization on an ongoing basis via that handshake, that email exchange that allows you to start dating. Social, I will make a quick note because I've kind of been a little harsh on social. There are purposes for these platforms. However, traffic tends not to be one. So if you're playing the attention game, yes. I think peer-to-peer fundraising on Facebook is tremendous. The videos have great lift. On Twitter, you can, reach out to leaders, social impact leaders and thought leaders in the space and join conversations at scale. Not great for sending traffic. YouTube, same thing, great for attention. It's actually the #2 search engine. So if you're high in video, there's a whole world that you should be playing with in YouTube. But again, the traffic back to your website, I wouldn't be looking to grow that much. Instagram has donation stickers and pieces, but it's a very insular platform, keeping its users on the platform because they want to keep and monetize the attention. And the same is obviously true for Facebook, where organic lift is just not what it is. When you're thinking about social and posts and you're trying to generate traffic, think about Gary Vaynerchuk's approach of jab, 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 right hook, no sale without the story, no knockout without the setup, meaning that we need these posts on social in general to be generating the emotionally triggered stories and value on the platform, and then finally the right hook, sales donate, or the come to our site type of links. So it's on platform engagement generation with episodes, moments where you right hook with sales ask, a link to your site, or a reason to connect with your organization. And that's the sort of like social in a nutshell, but I don't want to spend too much time there because I want to move on to improving our donor acquisition. I'm talking about traffic, but how do we move that traffic? How do we put up those relationship building moments? Pause real quick for any extra questions or reframing on deeper questions on SEO. I think that there's like some maybe issues around how traffic sources work together or any things to stay away from. Okay, not seeing any, we'll march right on bravely. How we move through and think about different interactions. Well, look, in the potential flow, we've got an interaction 1 where someone comes to our site. There's a call to action, a CTA. So someone comes to our site. The next one is the website captures that email in some way, and then they go away. However, the nurturing begins in this flow of email nurture, anywhere 0 to 9 months. with also potential opportunity to remarket to them or have further social engagement with them on other platforms to nurture them toward that giving moment where gift is triggered and we trigger our thank you process flow for those giving moments. So seems pretty simple, right? I want to make sure that we're on board with emails. I mentioned Seth Godin before, but his book, Permission Marketing, really set the standard for this idea of giving people a chance to volunteer their attention and then that helping build a better customer base. That's what we're building. A list of people with whom you have permission to talk to is the largest asset I consider of value in an organization. I think emails offer this lower barrier ask that lets you to keep talking. It's an owned asset your organization has, and it's a communication bridge that Facebook can't turn off, that Instagram can't turn off, that LinkedIn can't turn off, whatever it is that is tightening the algorithm and forcing you into a pay-to-play relationship. It continues to be, even though, yes, year over year, click-throughs and open rates slightly declined, it still works. So it can also, and this is a fun point, be connected to larger data sets. What does that mean? When you get an email, you don't just get an at whatever address. What you're really getting is not just the permission to communicate, but data. We can look up in public records and paid for records a lot of information about someone. And using the wealth scraping tool, you can even get things like wealth and location and a scary amount of information. Obviously, be careful with GDPR based on where you are. And then finally, remarketing as well. Once you have an email address, you can actually plug it into systems like Facebook and LinkedIn and a number of others and say like, hey, if this email matches anything in your database, I want you to serve up ads to them or even a lookalike audience to them and build a very robust remarketing campaign as well. Okay, more questions about the social has minimal weight influence on rankings on Google and other SERPs. Can you please extend this to the audience? Yeah, I didn't make any sort of assertion that social links affects SEO at all. And if you want to dive into it, we've got a wonderful 3-hour course on content marketing, and I recommend looking at Moz for answering any of these official questions. What I will say is there are a lot of SEO spammers out there. There's a lot of folks trying to trick you into saying we're going to pay for your place. And one thing I'll note, if you're going to pay for any service, note that whoever's trying to sell you on SEO, search for them. And if they don't show up, there's a reason. They don't know what they're doing. And they're trying to sell you on something they don't know how to do. So just beware of people selling you stuff in that world. Trust Moz, trust people that are certified, trust results, and trust writing good content. Because there's a lot of snake oil out there and a lot of misinformation, and it changes every 6 months. All right, done. So here's what I want you to think about. No dead ends. I want you to hold this mantra. Hold this mantra when you're thinking about user flows on your site, and for any traffic that ends up on your site, I want you to think about, wait a minute, are we putting up a dead end? Meaning that, is there no call to action? So at the very least, like, you could have something in your footer, right? Here is a whale site with a sad little get nutritious emails, like a little constant little ask in the bottom. But anything that has content, anything that has people coming to it, ask yourself, what is the next step? What is the next step someone's going to take? And you know what? Employ some pop-ups. This is a quick, fast way. If you want to run around our site and see me pointing at inboxes and email boxes, we do this. We have these relevant asks all over the place because we want to make sure there's no dead end. We want to build relationships, but you have to ask. And it may seem annoying, and this is like kind of where I come back to. I personally hate pop-ups. I think they ruin the internet. However, they work. I have the data to back that up, and I care more about building relationships with folks that'll run away than I care about the sort of potential frustration of pop-ups. Okay. Sign up asks and donor breadcrumbs. Value proposition in exchange for email. I keep saying this word, but what does it actually mean? Well, guess what? Like, no one's running around the internet being like, you know what I need right now? Another email. I need another email newsletter in my inbox. Like, this is actually a challenge because it is growing over time. So what is it that you are going to help them with? What is the value you will provide in exchange for handing over that email? And guess what? Get another newsletter is not a good one. So frame it. So for instance, we do pop-ups around Giving Tuesday saying, hey, clock is ticking, sign up. By the way, Giving Tuesday is coming up, and we've got a sort of drip campaign to get you ready for Giving Tuesday. We then have content lockers, inline landing page asks, petitions and pledges and pop-ups. I can break out some of these a bit more. Down here also is an example from Lung Cancer Foundation of America, LCFA. We love them. And what they're saying is, instead of newsletters, it's like help your loved ones get answers they need. And so like that's very clear. Like, oh, I'm getting answers and I'm helping my family or people that may be affected by lung cancer. Like that's value, and that's an email. Okay, here we go. Pop-ups. I already said it. They work. Here's some tools you can use. Check them out. Check the pricing. See what works for you. But something like Opt-in Monster or Sumo will let you manage these things in a responsible way. Don't underestimate the instant donation page. All right, this is a great tactic. This may be worth the entire cost of entry here. So sure, I said don't ask for a donation on the first date. However, I think there's an opportunity, and it's been shown that this works at signups, right? The sign up when somebody gives over their email means that you have their attention and a little bit of momentum on your side. And you can use that opportunity for an immediate first donate ask. Just needs to make sure the link between their sign up and the donation is clear. Like, why is this in a thread that makes sense? So here's a little example from Hillsdale College Constitution course, right? And so you just signed up for this free giveaway, right? A little content locker, as I mentioned before, this free giveaway of a book. And they're saying like, hey, we're going to send this to you. By the way, do you want to help ensure that more Americans are educated about our founding principles? You got a free thing, right? The ebook, the what have you that you've packaged together. Now the next thing is an immediate ask. Thanks for signing up. We sent you the course. We gave you something for free. So there's a little bit of karma playing in here as well. There's a little bit of reciprocity in play, where it's like, hey, I got something for free. I'm more likely to give at this moment. So play with this flow. Think about how you can use reciprocity in that moment to ask for the donation right after, because that has been shown to work. We want to be thinking about automated nurture series. So welcome series, things that you can set up automatically that are automatically thanking and following up with people potentially. And so birthday notes, giving anniversaries, segmentation. And remember that the first 45 days is actually a pretty critical period to convert donors. There's a cliff after that moment. Been a number of studies that showed that, where after that first 45 days, people are sort of starting to forget about you. So think about how your welcome series works. Now this is different than your marketing cadence of like, all right, here is our June newsletter. Here is our, August newsletter. This is a thing that once I sign up, I'm getting a, hey, welcome to our organization. Here's what we're about. Few 3 days later, however many, it's a little story of impact we want to share you about Jessica, who is a supporter, who we have helped. And then ultimately evergreen content and campaign donation actions. I am super embarrassed. I think my battery's about to run out. Mel, I'm going to have to ask you maybe if you can talk through the questions real quick. I'm going to run and get my charger, because obviously nothing was going to go wrong on this case.
Just keeping us on our toes, aren't you? All right, so we have Fatu asking a question. What top books, resources would you recommend for digital fundraising? Well, I know Whole Whale has a ton of resources on there, so I'm just going to do a quick plug for them. Sam, if you want to maybe pop Whole Whale's URL into the link there so people can kind of check out what Whole Whale does there. The next question from an anonymous, is there any way to split Google Trends or other SEO into specific demographics like age? I, for one, am not an expert. I'm going to let George answer that one.
Yeah.
Did you plug in okay?
Yeah, no, I did it because obviously you should have your charger when you do a presentation. I mean, the question of books tend to get outdated very quickly. So the books I would sort of recommend are actually more old school, like Cialdini's Influence, that are tenets in persuasion and how fundamentally humans engage and can be persuaded. So think about it as more of a question about sales than it is about fundraising. So I guide you towards something like that. And then, I think Julie Campbell, give her a shout out because I like her work. Has a lot of great written resources. And we also have a digital fundraising course at wholewhale.com/fundraise, which talks about a lot of these tactics in depth. Is there a way to split Google Trends and other SEO into specific demographics like age? So not in Google Trends, but here's a cool tool for you. If you go into the Google Ad Grant or a Google advertising display and you do keyword research, it'll actually give you a demographic breakout, which is fascinating. All righty. Here we go. Moving right along.
That was record speed, by the way. Well done.
I'm like a little out of breath. I'm so pathetic. It's been so smoky in California, and I haven't been able to go on enough runs. So like the little jog to go get my charger. And so we carry on. The inline sign up. All right. So what does this actually mean? So here is Dream, awesome charter school based in New York. Recommend you check them out. But here's an example of inline, which says inside the content, as you're reading along, there is a static, hey, sign up here for more information. You may be interested in Dream Charter Schools. So you can add in these signups in the flow, which is more likely to convert than something that just is like hiding in the footer. Petitions. So change.org and Care to, some of the big ones. You can also just grow your own. You can build your own petition and build it out. There's tools for doing this. But ultimately what you're doing is creating a cause, a campaign, and then a moment that is giving people a reason to sign up. And you can even like browse, frankly, change.org and Care to for how people are already doing this. And this can help you build a list. Some of these cases you have to pay to get access to some of that data. So I know those pricing pieces always change, but the concept is sound, right? You're taking an emotional moment, packaging it in a way that people can put their names behind it. And by the way, hand over their email address so that you can begin that relationship with them. The anatomy of a petition, and we'll get into it. So here's some work with World Animal Protection to support the Big Cat Public Safety Act. And like, here you go, here's a petition with a Google form, right? That worked really well. But what we're looking for in the anatomy, the headline, the hook, the characters involved, what is at stake, right? What is the emotional trigger of video that we're explaining our issue with? Who's the villain, right? Every story has got a villain. Consequences if we don't achieve what we need to. We have to start with a certain push. So we don't want to be the first penguin in the water, so to speak. We don't want to be like, oh, you have 0 people signed. So starting off with some people that are a part of it, and that social proofing of even potentially like why people signed, or that like signing wall of, hey, here are the number of people that have supported this cause, supported this petition, and are getting behind this. All righty. Gratitude. All right, so this is a fun one. The USO is brilliant at doing the following, and I encourage you all to go to the USO and go through this flow. They do these signatures of saying like, hey, support the troops with your signature around this, and then sign up. And so as soon as you've signed this card, because you're signing the card as a message to the troops, you then are taken into a user flow that asks you various questions around why it is that you care about this case. And then at the end of the survey, you end up with a donation. Hey, yeah, I'll donate this thing because I care about this cause. I've been answering questions about it. And then the donate page. Now, this may seem like a wild, Mr. Toad's wild ride of a user flow, but it works. I encourage you all to do this and then think about, hey, wait a minute, if we were doing a petition, what is that next step? Remember when I talked about that initial donation page, that immediate donation page that happens after some type of engagement? This is effectively that with a survey bridge between the action. Pledges. Okay, another one from World Animal Protection. Climate change is our world's biggest threat, and intensive animal farming, biggest contributor. Reduce your impact by reducing the amount of cruelly produced meat you eat. So sign the pledge, right? This is a identity alignment in a moment for them to build this campaign. But guess what? Signing the pledge means they get an email, right? It is another opportunity for them to build relationships with people that are signing this pledge and agreeing to also help the movement. Other pledges are some friends at Plastic Pollution Coalition have the 4 R's pledge of refuse, reduce, recycle, reuse plastics. And so in taking the pledge, you're sort of learning about the issue and offering up your email for, you guessed it, a relationship to start. So many different ways. Here, maybe you just had a newsletter sign up. Some anatomy here. Want to think about the headline issue. What is the ask that you have there? The connection of me to we to us. So how am I talking about the individual person's action that they're going to take, the context of what happens when a group of us get aligned with that, and then the impact on the world. So it's an issue larger than ourselves, and we love being connected to that. Images must be part of this thing to motivate. The motivational, certainly the facts and sacrifice involved in the context of that pledge that someone's doing, ability. So what are the like tips for behavior change that someone's going to actually end up doing, and putting that up front, making sure somebody's very clear. And then the social proof, right? Who's doing it with me? How is this an us versus them, where I see that I'm part of a tribe of people that care, and tapping into that, a little bit of that travelism inside of our pledge and building that. Giveaways. This is another tactic. Yeah, sign up to win a watch, or get a 6 weeks of lunches, or get this mug. I would say be careful with these. Yeah, they'll help you build a list. However, like someone who's like signing up to get an Apple Watch or chance to win an Apple Watch isn't necessarily going to be interested in getting information from you. It won't end up being converting. So it'll be one of those things you're like, oh, we got thousands of emails, and then you try to email them and they're like, we got thousands of bounces because no one wanted to hear from us. Thousands of unsubscribes, right? So the way in which, this is an important note here, the way in which you acquire that relationship on that first handshake can dictate how it will perform downstream. There can be aligned sort of like, hey, limited edition charm bracelets and things that you offer that are aligned with your cause. And then you can say, hey, by the way, offer up a gift. Okay. As we run down on our time a little bit more, there's so many ideas that we have. Here's a article. Sorry, it's not a really great URL, but Mel, maybe you can post that into the chat really quickly. Tips/22 ways to acquire donors. But that's on our site. But yes, there's tons more tactics that you can employ around campaigns. Note here, tactics are cheap, right? It's about the process. So how you're A/B testing, how you're planning the full user journey, your segmentation of how you acquire them, and then obviously measure. If these things are working, do more. If not, change or get rid of them. So I don't want you to think that like, oh, we just need to employ all of these tactics. Choose a couple, measure and test them, because there's so much to do there. Converting giving moments. So how do we architect these giving moments? Well, we planned it out in our overall drumbeat campaign strategy over the course of the year. When we're doing it on either growth, are we trying to grow our audience, or are we trying to convert our audience? Generally speaking, we focus on giving as we move into Q4, right? We're trying to do regular storytelling along the way, and then tie our narratives together in our content calendar. So it's not like a bunch of like random petitions and things that we're asking for. I recommend you create a digital marketing calendar. We have a template. You can go get it. It's free, hoel.com/university, where you map out the holidays and content and seasons and types of ads and work that you want to be doing to make sure that you're building that attention engine around your audience. Some example drumbeat giving moments, right? So it's not just give at the end of the year. There are constantly ways for you to say, hey, here's an opportunity to help out with crisis by X date, or a donor match. Hey, we have a wonderful opportunity for us to double our gifts made by a certain date. We can help one unit or a broad statistic, right? We care about helping one unit, one individual versus an overall, hey, there are 30,000 people suffering from X. Let me tell you about Jennifer. And then that story there. We can focus on local regions. So even though you may be national, you can focus on a regional bit of work to increase conversion in that area, and a number of other ones where you want to think about these giving moments though. I've mentioned the word value proposition a number of times. Here's a little bit more about it, like how does their support help those working in the field? Like what are their pain points? Why does your work work well? How are you tapping into how somebody will perceive importance or alignment with their own, how they view the world? How do we track success? In tracking success, we have to certainly know what's working first. And here's a little process of gathering data, asking questions. We then analyze to find the answer to that question. Google Analytics or whatever data source we're going into. We look for insights, and then finally learn and act. How are we going to change what we do? We're going to test this, kill this, upgrade this, and then move back around the circle, asking questions. So it's important to note that process before you dive into the wealth of data inside of Google Analytics, but this is where we're looking. So, we already learned some of these things, and now you're saying, oh my gosh, there's so many different sources. Remember, we understand that Google or CPC, cost per click, direct traffic, fast web would be referral traffic, Bing is organic, Yahoo is organic. So you're seeing these, but they all get like sort of teased out, and you're then able to see, very fascinating, like what are the conversion rates, meaning how many of that traffic that showed up actually converted into users, donors, emails. And when we set things up, so in this case, we have a goal set up in Power Poetry. This is Power Poetry data. We can actually see the total amount of completions and the conversion rate. So we can say, oh my gosh, who's this partner over here that's referring us traffic? Let's double down over there and try to build a deeper relationship. Or maybe, we're paying for traffic and we want to analyze how that's going. Setting up funnels, if we are moving into donations or those types of flows I was talking about, saying, all right, then they go to this page, then they go to this page, we can set up donation page funnels and flows that analyze how people are dropping off and maybe realizing, oh, we're making a mistake on one particular page. So we can do multi-step goal conversion setup inside of Google Analytics to find the drop-off point, to see where we're sort of losing people. Ooh, Facebook. All right. So somebody asked that previous question about data around demographics. There's no better source of demographics of your own audience in your website than Facebook. So Facebook Business Manager will let you set up the Facebook pixel on your site for free, because they, by the way, want you to advertise later and they love getting data. But then it'll give you information about all manner of demographic information about your audience traffic. Installing the Facebook pixel, pretty straightforward. Similar to Google Analytics, you're tossing it on every single page of your site. And then it also lets you create custom audiences based on traffic to your website if you want to go advertise to them, because surprise, surprise, they want you to spend money with them. Okay, I have still a few minutes left, just in case there's more QA. We covered a lot of topics. Hopefully what you've taken away here is a couple action steps, things that you want to try to employ on your site, things that you may want to try as you move into the end of the year. And you think about how you're saying, all right, have I been doing my best about building up relationships or building up those giving moments? In summary, first you get the traffic, then you get the emails, then you get the money. Sorry, I had to go with the Scarface joke here. Trust the process, and I really, I always try to be careful when I give a bunch of tactics where people think that that's the answer, because these tactics are temporary, they come and go, but building the asset, right, that list of people that you have the permission to talk with, that is the strategy. That is the North Star that you should be focused on, and the tactics serve that. And by the way, you can't tell if it's working unless you measure it. So in God we trust, all others, please bring data. Thank you, William E. Deming. Famous also NASA quote, they put it on the wall there. So when we're talking about saying oh, I never click on ads, or I hate pop-ups, you may sort of trust in certain things, but show me the data on whether or not it works, and sort of throw out any sort of bias that you may personally have about a tactic or topic, and try to focus on the data there. Finally, a shameless plug. We have tons of courses and resources. Some are free, some are paid. We do our best. We offer a 30-day guarantee if you're not happy with what you have there, but that's wholewhale.com/university. All right, Mel, I don't see any questions coming in, but I'm happy to have a little back and forth and any other.
Yeah, there's been a couple actually on the chat. And right at the beginning there, we didn't go over there. You talked a little bit, and I don't want to derail this too much, but you talked a little bit about spam, and there's a couple of people that are wondering how to mitigate getting into spam folders of people's emails, because they're trying to, push out lots of different campaigns, and it seems like they're having issues with their emails out going into spam all the time. So wondering if you had any top tips on that. I know it's not really what you touched on, but I'm sure you have some
well, I mean, advice. I'm talking about email, and I think it's important. So one thing is to search around and make sure your domain has a health check, right? And so you can just Google up sort of health checks and white label white lists, and make sure you haven't been flagged on your domain for anything. So that's a check. The most common thing I see as an issue is people don't have the proper MX records. So just write that down, be what the heck did he say? Look up your own MX record information and make sure those are updated. Then you might want to think about pruning your list, right? So Here's the thing, sending to a bunch of emails that don't open, or even worse, send bounces or soft bounces back to back from the email service providers is actually hurting your overall delivery rates. So consider pruning your list of people that haven't touched or engaged with your stuff in 6 months. Send them a final opt-in, opt-out, saying like, hey, we haven't heard from you in a while, but it's pointless to talk with people that don't want to hear from you. So keeping a tidy list is important. If you have bought a list and spammed the heck out of it and gotten those bounces, you've ruined the reputation of your domain. And I'm certain that if you weren't before you were on the blacklists for regardless of where you're sending from, you want to consider also if you're using a reputable email service provider yourself, like a MailChimp or whoever, making sure you're on a good, strong platform there as well. But yeah, delivery rates, that's a thing. Good question.
Thank you. Another question coming in, what's the most important step for a nonprofit just starting to build their evergreen campaign and funnel?
The most important step is first making sure, I love the use of evergreen strategies because you set them and sort of let them run, is making sure that you've set up the analytics to make sure that you know they're working and that you can measure success via what kind of traffic you set in there. So when I was talking about those Google Analytics goals and things like that, make sure that's set up so that you can track the success of that. After that, think about after the campaign is done, how it's going to show up in your overall content narratives coming in and out or being cross-linked from other popular pages, right? So you're going to write and you're going to realize that your evergreen page of like, hey, take this campaign pledge, whatnot, is actually not going to get organic traffic to it. You have to send people to, they're going to end up on a page saying, hey, here are 11 ways to make sure you use less water. Like, oh, that's helpful. Now, inside of that content, you push your evergreen piece. So it's kind of like advertising on your own site for your evergreen moment.
Great.
What else do we got?
Now we got a question from Christina. I don't know if you want to respond to that one.
Christina. I'm looking for Christina.
In the Q&A. So
keeping in mind capacity and budgets, is it ever a bad idea to just focus on 1 or 2 traffic areas as opposed to all 5? Christina, thank you. If I haven't made this clear, I don't want you focusing on all of the things with equal weight. Don't focus on all the things with equal weight. That is a terrible idea. I really want you doubling down on knowing nothing about your organization. I want you doubling down on making sure you've maximized the Google ad grant because that stuff's free and ready to go. And then I want you focused on, have you started working on your organic content, the content that explains what your organization does, answers questions that are key to the organization on unique pages that can be found and linked into your site. Those are the areas that will drive the most traffic, bang for your buck up front. With me knowing absolutely nothing about your organization, I'm probably like 80% correct on that. But what I'm 100% correct about is if you try equally on all of those things, let's say I was like, all right, half your time should be spent on writing content on Google and half of it should be spent on Facebook. Like, that's a lie. Writing more content on Facebook, frankly, is going to get you a diminishing return because they tighten the algorithm and organic lift and traffic from social is going to decrease. Now, knowing nothing about your organization, I also don't know if you happen to have a potential opportunity on, let's say, Pinterest, which can drive tons of traffic if you are able to create that type of content and if you have that sort of alignment. So I have seen sites that are like 50% traffic from Pinterest and like, you don't know anything about us. Totally, I don't. But knowing nothing, I'm going to tell you to focus on a couple at a time based on where you see wins already. I want you to double down on where you see wins already rather than trying to assume like, oh, we got to like pick up our social. We got to pick up our referral. It's not keeping up. I want you to double down on what's working. Oh, fact-based journalism. Oh, God bless you. Like, feel free to ping me. I'm happy to give more thoughts on that. That's excellent. Yeah. So SEO for sure. 0 doubt. Followed by ad grant. Those 2 things. Do those 2 things.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, George. I think we'll probably cap it there. We kind of run just a little bit over time there. And so I know people have lots of things to get to today, so we will keep it short. I'm just going to close it off here and start sharing my screen for a second. Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like that was the quickest 1 hour of my life. There's so much jam-packed information in there. So thanks so much, George. If you're feeling inspired, have any further questions, or just want to keep the conversation going. I invite you to check out our Donor Experience Week community forum. Sam has actually just hopefully posted that into the chat, or she will in a sec here. Also, just a reminder that there is a very short survey at the end of this presentation. It's anonymous. We'd love to hear your feedback. I'm sure George would too. So please take some time to fill that out. And otherwise, we will see you tomorrow morning for the start of Donor Experience Week, day 4. I can't believe it's day 4 already tomorrow. And you'll be joined with Ross Kimborowski from CrowdSpring. So we look forward to seeing you then. If you haven't registered, we've also popped that link into the chat. And with that, George, I don't know if you have any final words, but it's been a pleasure. I'll leave that to you to kind of close us off here.
Absolutely. Your work only matters if it is heard. And frankly, this presentation is simply going to be time spent on a Wednesday, unless you write down just one thing you want to try. So please write down one thing you want to try from this, something practical, something you want to do a little more research on. Write it down, and then right under that, I want you to write why your work matters. Why'd you wake up this morning and say, you know what, we got to push this out today. We got to do this work, because I guarantee the only way to move forward on any of this stuff is if you do just one thing tomorrow. So I appreciate your time. It's the most valuable asset you have. I appreciate Keela for putting this all together and roping us all in to share these resources. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great advice. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.